So I've run a couple of videos here based on the same general idea is what happens if we do get a convention of states, which I'm not warm to. Please check out my video on that. But since it's looking like it's more of a possibility, I think discussion of what potential amendments need to be showing up do need to be talked about. So this particular first one, I'm not locked into it as an idea yet. It's more of a kind of a conversation starter because I could see where it could have some issues, but I think you see where I'm going with it. Members of the U.S. House of Representatives will no longer represent districts, but will act as representatives of the constituents as a whole. Upon passage of this amendment, districts will cease to be drawn. Candidates will be run statewide as a pool of candidates. Voters will select by ranked choice voting up to the number of representatives allocated to the state by the most recent census. Candidates receiving the uppermost ranking shall fill the open seats until filled. So the idea here is first get rid of districting, which is really problematic. It's turned into this game, and it probably is being used pretty unfairly because whoever the party is in power, it kind of gives them uh, an ability to extend their reach beyond just the current victories they're having. So it almost makes it permanent to a certain extent. So the idea here is, okay, typically this is slightly altered in terms of ranked choice. So typically, ranked choice, you're voting on one office holder. And whoever gets the most votes, depending on how you get online, and I'm not going to talk about ranked choice here. I might throw that in another video if you don't know how that works. But the gist of it here is you are only voting for one candidate. So if you had seven representatives, you're only going to be you can pick up to seven of them, your first top seven choices, but only one of them is going to be filling an office. And the idea here is you will get a handful of candidates that end up representing a more or less majority view in the state. But what will happen is as you get down to the lower tiers, they'll start representing voting blocks that typically may not get good representation. So, so a big problem is a lot of times the courts will complain saying, "Oh well, this district was written in or drawn in such a way where a minority stronghold was split in half, and now they can't get proper representation." Well, under this type system, let's say a Latino candidate is running and Latinos decide, hey, no matter where we are in the state, because you can't draw a line through us and break us up into pieces, and let's say we really want specifically a Latino to represent us, they all vote for the Latino. They get a Latino representative. If there's enough, of a particular subgroup like that in the state, they could potentially vote for more. So I think the system would be a lot fairer. There may be some gamesmanship issues with doing a modified form of ranked choice voting. People who are a little bit more into that might want to give me their opinion on how that goes. Right. So here's the big one I think is very important. Counties that border other states may opt to leave the jurisdiction of their current state to join the jurisdiction of a neighboring one. This decision will be made by plebiscite in the county in question, with the populace voting at least 66% in the affirmative. The losing state may not impede this process or demand payments for infrastructure. The gaining state must approve of the receiving county. The losing state, gaining state, and county have 1 year to negotiate and plan the transition. 1 calendar year from the vote, the county falls under the jurisdiction of the gaining state with no obligations to the losing state. So this is my way, because there's a lot of talk about civil war and national divorce and all this other stuff, and it really doesn't work well. I mean, there's no way we can really make this happen. So what this creates is a pressure relief valve. So let's say a county neighboring another state is just so sick of the way their state's running things, they can put up an election ballot measure, and if 66% of the population voting says yay, the other state that they're bordering can pick them up as a new county. Now, why this has a lot of really good potential to fix a lot of problems is a lot of states have this mentality of, oh, well, there's a rural county in the outlying area. We don't have to listen to what they say because their votes aren't going to tip the election. But if that county can say, hey, if you keep neglecting us or you keep treating us like garbage, we're just going to leave. This will alter the way a lot of state capitals run their states immediately just to prevent this from happening. Now, if it starts happening, oh boy, will they start. Oh, well, either they're going to change their ways or they're going to keep losing counties. One thing to keep in mind here is once a county leaves the state and goes to another one, that redraws the line and puts more counties on the border of that other state. So it could have a cascading effect to where, a state might be down to the county around its state capital and everybody else is left to the other surrounding states. So I think this one has a lot of potential for good because it puts the power down at the county level where I really think it should be. Okay. Excuse me, my formatting went off. All laws passed by Congress must have a sunset date of a maximum of 20 years from passage. Upon sunset, the law expires. The law as it was written may not be reincorporated via any process of that of a normal other than that of a normal bill starting in the House or Senate. All existing laws will retroactively have sunset provisions applied for 10 years after the passage of this amendment. All governmental regulations and instructions must be linked to the law from which they are derived. The regulations expired with the law they are derived from. So I think everyone can see some value here. We have laws on the books that have literally been there since the 1700s. We have laws on the books that people have not been charged under in decades. And there's a lot of garbage out there as well. So what this would do is end up getting rid of a lot of fat from the regulatory system because this also slaves regulations and to the laws. Now, there's probably some shenanigans Congress can pull to kind of mess this up, but I think the idea that a law should at worst bind a generation. So with a 20-year sunset clause, the worst it can do is bind one generation and it doesn't carry forward to the next. If something is so important that it must be maintained, Congress should be able to find the ability to redraft the law and put it back on the books. And this will have a huge effect of debloating our bureaucracy. Okay. That's what I wanted to cover tonight. Hopefully this throws some thoughts out there on if you think these are horrible ideas, let me know. If you have some ideas about how to improve them, throw them out there as well. Discussion's always a good thing. And appreciate you spending time with me tonight. Please consider liking the video. Please consider subscribing to the video. And of course, keep an eye out for future videos. And we can do more of this. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.